continue. First, let's finish reading the chapter, 16th chapter. We'll start from text 23, I think. Right?
Which one?
Where
No,
did
text 17 or 18.
Okay. 17. Maybe people can quickly take turns. Adults.
Yes, go ahead, Tarun.
Self-complacent and always important, deluded by wealth and false prestige. There's something proudly perform, sacrifices in name only without following any rules or regulations.
Can I just add a point here?
Yeah.
That I was just finding it very interesting that it seems that there are even so-called religious people, right? Because they're proudly performing sacrifices, right? And yet, you know, their nature might be demoniac. So it's not just, you know, it's not that there is such a clear-cut category. There can be even people who in the name of religion or religiosity might also have similar qualities.
Or they make a show of being religious, and Krishna is saying that they perform some of the sacrifices. Especially you see in many places they will sacrifice animals and then do many things which are actually not mentioned in the scriptures. So that's why Krishna is saying without following any rules and regulations. Text 18. Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others, and blaspheme against the real religion.
Those who are envious and mischievous, who are lowest among men, are perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life.
So you can see how envy is kind of the root, envy towards Krishna, envy towards other living beings is kind of the root cause of all these other bad qualities, which is false ego, pride, lust, and anger, all kind of emerging from this quality of being envious. And envy means that I want, why is that other person, why is Krishna enjoying, why is the most powerful, why I am not the most powerful and enjoying the most. Text 20. Attaining repeated birth among the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. So this may seem like these people have no way to come back to Krishna, but Prabhupada explains that how the devotees of Krishna actually are much more merciful in many ways. And they will go to all these abominable places. Like Prabhupada came to the most abominable place, which is like the Bowery, and in this San Francisco, it was the Haight-Ashbury, where all abominable things were happening, and it was like a hell. But Prabhupada actually went there to liberate all these people by giving them Krishna consciousness. So in one sense, Krishna's statement is kind of made false by his devotees by bringing them to Krishna
And what
consciousness.
it really means is that because based on their ordinary karma, on the course of their ordinary karma, they would not have a way, an exit door, because of the kind of, so they're on this sort of this trajectory, right? And they're on their way into these lower species of life, which will take them a long time to, you know, go through that entire evolution. So, but you're saying that, but a devotee can come and intervene, interject, yeah.
There are three gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul.
The man who has escaped these three gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination.
And these last two verses are very important in this chapter. He who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. So we can see the effect of sometimes people say that scriptures are just writings of some people. How do we know that they're true? But the proof of the writings in the scriptures is basically when somebody doesn't follow them, then we can see how their life actually gets derailed. And then somebody who follows the injunctions of cleanliness, dharma, then you can see how they flourish and how they develop these qualities. So the proof of the power of the scriptures is exhibited by people who follow them or who do not follow them. One should therefore understand what is duty.
I just wanted to add another point there, that there is a analogy that is used by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It's called Ardha, I don't know what is Kutanyaya, right? Which means that suppose you have a hen, and this is something that in the modern world, many people tend to veer in that direction. So you have a hen, and then the person says, well, I really like the fact that one part of the hen gives me eggs, but I don't like the other part of the hen because that requires me to feed the hen. So I'm just going to accept, or I'm going to cut. There's actually this, this story that we grew up with, right? So this man says that why should I do this? So he cuts the hen, thinking that, this way I get the part of the hen that is only giving me the egg, right? So, but the point is that, so in the same way, we can sort of do the same, that there are parts of the, all these great literatures, which may seem very difficult to follow, or it may seem like it requires some sacrifice or some, evolution of our consciousness. And we may say, well, I don't accept this. I'm only going to accept the part that promises me some happiness, right? So one should not be whimsical, and that would also fall within the category of intellectual dishonesty, where I pick and choose, right? I find things that I already believe in, and I just kind of go with that, and I reject the others. So one has to be careful in one's reading. And the third thing that one should also be careful about is to take things out of context. So when we're reading, and as we go even deeper, maybe after this Bhagavad-Gita, if you pick another literature, we'll see that so many times different things are being said. And it's very easy for someone to just pick one statement out of context and make a sort of a rally around that, But one has to understand things in a much more nuanced manner, in the greater context of what the other literatures are saying. And even beyond that, how are the devotees, how are they taking those principles?
Yeah, one should not kind of interpret the teachings in the scriptures according to one's own whims or theories or tradition or whatever, and put one's own tradition or theories above the teaching. And if you don't understand something, that is all right, but then to interject one's own theories and whims to come out with a meaning and conclusion and follow that, that's very dangerous. One should seek help if you don't understand something. One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. So that's Krishna's final conclusion in this chapter. And then we'll go to 16th, 12th chapter.
So we're going to actually, so we've sort of combined two chapters because they're so similar. So in the 12th chapter, Krishna is actually speaking what are the kind of people that are actually dear to him. Because sometimes, and this is something I've grown up with, people see, so-called religious, spiritual people who, on the outside may have all the makings of a holy person, but then their behavior is completely off. And it's very disturbing to society, to individual faith. And so, Krishna is saying here that actually, just because someone is doing A, B, and C, and D, doesn't necessarily mean that such a person is dear, but actually a person who is who's exhibiting these kind of behavior, that is a sign that that person is actually my devotee.
So we'll start with text 13 and 14. One who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities. So this is the first quality, is being not envious. Krishna appreciates the most. And the positive side of that is kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego. That they go hand in hand together. Who is equal in both happiness and distress. Because if we are very happy in happiness, then it is guaranteed that we'll become sad when some suffering comes. So who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination. His mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me.
He by whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone. So both things. And who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me.
So you'll see that how the qualities, they become deeper and deeper. And this is, Krishna is talking about equipoised in the last two verses. My devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, which means he's always dependent on Krishna, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. So it doesn't mean that what it means here is not striving for some material result. Of course, we are always striving for a spiritual result, which is becoming dear to Krishna.
One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things. Such a devotee is very dear to me.
One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor. So this is very hard to do actually, all these things. Heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who does not care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me. So even it doesn't mean, okay, those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me.
So we can get into our presentation now.
So in text 1819, it says that you have, there are certain the qualities mentioned. It's not very easy. So how do mortals like us now?
Yeah,
We'll
talk
about that.
That's what we'll get into now in our presentation, and we can go as deep as you guys want. We can talk about these different qualities, and so this is where we ended yesterday. So as we were reading those verses, we are just going to watch. This happens to be one of our favorite movies. It's I don't know if anyone of you has watched it. It's called Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon. This is a movie on the life of Saint Francis of Assisi, who Prabhupada said was a first-class Vaishnava, first-class devotee. And in this movie, in this particular scene, he is born in a family where the father is actually a very, very rich businessman and very attached to his wealth. And St. Francis actually one day realizes, when he sees so much poverty, he starts to throw, all the blankets and clothes,
all the precious clothes the father has,
from his window. And the father gets really, really annoyed. So he drags, anyways, he's kind of had it with Francis. He's not interested in the business, and he's continuously just engages in his time in just remembering and praying to God. So he's really, anyways, tired. And so this kind of, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back, and he drags St. Francis to, to the local church, the priest, and he complains. And so we'll watch this little scene where we see how St. Francis actually relinquishes. And as we were reading those verses, Krishna says, right?
Yeah,
that
he's always dependent on me. He doesn't possess anything.
He has no cares.
No sense of proprietorship.
No sense of proprietorship.
Okay.
Let him just...
This will not do! How dare you disturb us when we are in the middle of saying our office? What's the matter with you, man? Have you lost your senses? It's not my fault, Your Grace. It's him, that lunatic there.
He's talking about his son.
Yes. It's me. My soul is in your hands. No use, believe me. Freedom and the purity that they experience. The rest is of no use to me.
No.
Go back.
Go back. Sorry about that.
No use. I want to be happy. I want to live like the birds in the sky. I want to experience the freedom and the purity that they experience. The rest is of no use to me. No use, believe me. If the purpose of life is this loveless toil we fill our days with, then it's not for me. There must be something better. There has to be. Man is a spirit. He has a soul. And That is what I want to recapture. My soul. I want to live. I want to live in the fields, stride over hills, climb trees, swim rivers. I want to feel the firm grasp of the earth beneath my feet, without shoes, without possessions, without those shadows we call our servants. I want to be a beggar. Yes, yes, a beggar. Christ was a beggar, and his holy apostles were beggars. I want to be as free as they are.
Your Grace, even beggars show respect for their fathers.
I'm not your son anymore. What is born of the flesh is flesh. What is born of the spirit is spirit. I now am born again. Father, I give you back everything that belongs to you. Your clothes, your possessions. Your name, too. There are no more fathers. There are no more sons. And everyone who has left houses, or brothers, or sisters, or fathers, or mothers, or children, or fields, for the sake of our Heavenly Father, will receive 100 times more in the life to come.
Yeah, this is a very, very inspiring and very powerful movie. So whenever you get a chance, you can watch it.
So you can see, right, that how, in this moment where, St. Francis realizes that he wants to reclaim himself, and he wants to reconnect with his real self. And so this is an opportunity in the Bhagavad-Gita. Krishna is also emphasizing that we are all innately spiritual. And what that means is, sometimes when we think of the word spiritual, we have this sense that it just means some homogeneous light with nothing in it, right? Complete voidism. But actually, that being a spark of that supreme consciousness means that we also have these spiritual qualities, and those qualities, we can actually, once we realize our true nature, we can actually revive those qualities, or those qualities will automatically become manifest. So these are
There are 26 qualities that are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita about the qualities of a devotee. And this is how we identify who is a devotee. Of course, by the practice, but more importantly by achar. Achar means the behavior, and behavior means the qualities. So maybe you can read them.
kind to everyone,
Does not quarrel with anyone,
fixed in the absolute truth,
equal to everyone,
faultless,
charitable,
mild,
clean,
simple, without material possessions,
benevolent,
peaceful,
completely attached to Krishna,
has no material hankering,
meek,
steady,
self-controlled,
does not eat more than required,
sane,
respectful,
humble,
grave,
compassionate,
friendly,
poetic,
silent,
expert.
So Prabhupada actually asked his disciples to actually print these 26 qualities and put them on the door. Now, it's an interesting thing because on the one hand, these qualities will manifest as we develop. So out of all of these qualities, the quality number 12, which is completely attached to Krishna, is the source of all these other qualities. So in one sense, these qualities will manifest as we make more and more spiritual progress and as we let go of our material identity. But on the other hand, there is also something to be said about cultivating. That is the practice of trying to be on this platform, and then Krishna, seeing our effort, will bestow it upon us.
So this is how Prabhupada thought of his disciples. There was a interview in Gainesville in which the interviewer asked him, how would I recognize a true follower of the Krishna consciousness movement? By his behavior. What would his traits be, and what would be his outward expressions? And Prabhupada's simple reply was that he will be a very perfect gentleman. That's all. You could not find any fault in him. So again, it boiled down to Prabhupada is not describing what are they doing, but what their behavior is and what their qualities are.
And it's really, really important that while we are practicing, that we become an ambassador, right? We try it to the best of our capacity to walk our talk, to have that level of integrity, so that the words that we speak will have an impact, and that we can live a life of honesty. That is the most important quality of a devotee, is that he's not duplicitous, which means that he's not being a hypocrite and not trying to pretend and trying to gain power or money or what have you by his practices of spiritual life. But he's genuinely trying, even though we may not be perfect.
So the qualities are, somebody can kind of...
Can you read this verse?
Yeah, I'll read that. Somebody can develop these qualities just through mental power and willpower. But in reality, these are the qualities of the soul, which are ultimately manifested by the practice of bhakti. So this verse says, Yashasti bhaktir bhagavati kinchana sarve gunestatra samasate sura harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manorathena sati dhavato bahi. All the demigods and their exalted qualities, such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation, become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva.
On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities. Even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives, he must be driven by his own mental speculations and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a man? So I was just thinking that Prabhupada gives a nice little analogy in this regard, that the honesty or integrity of people when they are covered by this material energy is like the honesty and integrity of a group of thieves who do a big theft and then sit under a tree, and then they say, well, now let's try and divide this loot honestly, right? So just like when you are doing a math equation or an algebraic equation, if your starting point is off, then everything else following that is also off. So this is the reason, because under the control of Krishna's material energy, we are simply driven on the mental platform, which is constantly fluctuating. And thus those qualities are also always in a state of flux.
And this is an important, because sometimes when we hear something like this, then you may say, well, there are good qualities in people. And even though they may not be devotees or practicing any kind of bhakti, how do we really understand this aspect? So yes, there are good qualities in people. Nonetheless, what this verse is saying is that those qualities are generated from mental speculations, which means a person's own conception of who they are, which is faulty to begin with. They consider themselves as body, not a spiritual being, and also not they may or may not have this aspect of connection to the Supreme. So the qualities, because they are generated from the mind, they are not going to stay for too long. And when a situation comes, then those qualities may be just they may just disappear. So therefore, yes, there may be good qualities in others, but what we are talking about is this permanent spiritual qualities that actually are a different level.
Actually, when we talk about the modes of material nature, which is the next topic coming up, we will see that any goodness in this world is always, it's never pure. It's always just like, you know, you have these primary colors, there's always like other colors mixed in it. So even when a person is trying to exhibit mode of goodness, it's always tainted by passion and ignorance, and they're always in competition with each other. So that's the reason why we're not. I think Sarika Goel, I think you've been trying to raise your hand. Did you want to say something, or are you waiting to get into the Hindi class? Or just 1 second, please.
Stop share.
I'm just going to stop share. Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah, there are people who want to get to the Hindi class. Okay. Okay. Can you do this to Anita Agarwal?
Anita Agarwal and Sharad Ansaria.
Okay.
Let me see if I can.
Just
move
1
that.
second. We'll just try and move you. Room 1. Room 1.
Sharad Ansaria.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone else that needs to go? Anita, you put Anita there?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I think there was a question, but maybe we can come back and take it. Otherwise, we'll come back. Okay.
So let me go back. So, and this is the test, like we talked about. A true devotee, those qualities, they become part of him. They are like into his blood or into her blood. Nothing can, no situation in the world can take them away. And this story kind of illustrates that there was a person who watched a devotee who was taking bath in the river, a sage, and the sage saw a scorpion like floating in the river and really struggling very hard to come out of the water. So the sage tried to pick up the scorpion, and as soon as he pick up the scorpion would, out of fear, bite the sage, and the sage
And then fall back into the river.
and the sage would kind of accidentally drop the scorpion back into the river. So he kept on doing this, and the person was kind of very curious to see this behavior, and he asked the sage that, well, the scorpion is biting you. Why are you repeatedly just trying to pick him up and save him? He's going to maybe kill you with his poison. So why are you doing that?
So the sage said that, you know, just like it is his nature, swabhava, his nature to bite, it's in my nature to be compassionate. So this is the level of compassion that a person develops. And it just happens as a result of seeing everyone as part of Krishna. And we'll talk about how, you know, I think there's a question. And this tolerance that one has is actually non-different or is very deeply connected to this aspect of humility. When a person understands that one is actually just this tiny particle of the supreme consciousness of Krishna, and then naturally as one practices bhakti, then one develops this quality of great tolerance. And this was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's this verse actually that we're going to recite is sort of the foundational verse for us to be able to practice bhakti. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that one should actually string this verse around a necklace and wear it around one's neck at all times. So this is from Shikshastakam.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke these 8 verses, which contains the essence of all bhakti in them. So this is the 3rd verse, and this is the most practical of all the verses. It says, Trinadapi sunichena taror api sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
So there are 2 things that he gives the example. One is the grass or the straw in the street. When somebody is walking on it or steps on it, the straw never retaliates and never says that, why did you put your feet on me? And it's ready to be, again, trodden by the next person. It's in that state of mind.
Actually, there's a very beautiful story that I have gone to when I have felt, in some way disturbed by someone else's behavior. It's a very nice story of Lord Chaitanya, who's in Jagannath Puri, and he's standing in the temple, and there's a pillar against which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would stand and offer his prayers. And so there was this old lady, and she was, without realizing it, she actually put her feet on Lord Chaitanya's head or shoulders, shoulders, and she was getting on him so that she could actually, because she was kind of short, so she was trying to get on that so that she could take darshan. And so Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a assistant with him, and so he chastised her, saying that, you foolish lady, don't you see that this is Lord Chaitanya? You should not be putting your feet on him. And then Lord Chaitanya immediately turned around and actually started appreciating this lady and said, she has been blessed with so much of enthusiasm for seeing Lord Jagannath, and I wish I had the same enthusiasm. And he offered respects to her instead of getting offended. So it's a very elevated, of course, Lord Chaitanya is, Krishna. So, but it's just a principle that we can, gradually, this is the principle that Lord Chaitanya is talking about, this idea of constantly offering all respects to others and expecting nothing in return. It's a place of, it's actually this mood of humility is actually non-different from this love. There is, in fact, in the bhakti literatures, it's described that humility and love, they're actually one and the same thing.
And the second example is even more powerful. It says more tolerant than a tree, because you see how a tree actually gives everything. People may come and they just pluck the fruits from the tree without asking the tree or taking permission, and they may even cut the branches. And a day may come when they may even cut the whole trunk of the tree. But the tree never retaliates. It gives shade, it gives fruits, flowers, so many things. It's constantly giving, but it never retaliates when somebody takes something from away or even kills the tree.
And it's in the times that we live. In fact, there was a TED talk which we were planning to show first, but maybe we may or may not. But in that TED talk, this guy is saying that there's actually an app that you can go back like 5 years, 7 years, and then you can type any day of the year, just any random day, and then one will see that what people were upset about. And you'll see on Twitter, on Facebook, people are raving and ranting about something that they find is not right, and how they're offended by this and offended by that. So this is a completely different way or a mode of living, where one is not disturbed by the activities of others, but rather sees that activity in a mood of great acceptance and great tolerance. Of course, there's a place for us to draw a line. There's another story I think that needs to be told here. Otherwise it may seem that this is very much otherwise it'll be imbalanced, and it can also be artificial, which is the story of a snake who was again who was to be constantly biting, and so Lord Narada, he was a great teacher. When he traveled through there, he told the snake that why are you filled with so much poison? Why don't you stop this biting business? And so the snake somehow took that instruction to heart. And so Narada went off, and the snake decided that he was never going to bite ever again. And so then what happened was the local boys, they started thinking that, oh, okay, the snake has now stopped biting. He's no longer, and so they started really harassing him. So they would pelt stones at him. They would, it was just like this horrible treatment that they would give to the snake. And so finally, when Narada came again and he saw the snake was in this completely like horrible condition and almost about to die, so he said, what happened to you? He said, well, I was simply trying to follow your instruction. So he said, yeah, you told me that I should not retaliate. So then Narada said, yes. He said, yes, I told you not to bite, but you can always show your fang. So the point being that there may be times when we may have to assert ourselves, but this is the underlying principle even behind the assertion.
Yeah, and I guess the main thing that I kind of understand from this verse is amanina manadena. It's very difficult for a conditioned living being to not seek respect and honor for oneself, and it's very hard to give honor and respect to others. But our Prabhupada's teacher, he said that how honor is considered like the stool of a board. it's that despicable for us to seek honor, because like nobody would go and when we are seeking honor, we are basically eating the stool of a board. And every time we seek that, then that thought, if you can bring that in our mind, that yeah, this is actually most harmful for my spiritual life, when I'm seeking honor and when I'm hesitant to give honor to others, actually I am harming my own spiritual life. So if we start equating honor, accepting honor to the stool of the board, then naturally we'll start feeling, okay, I don't want this, and rather I want to give honor to others.
How many more slides do we have? Should I just quickly go through and see what?
What is the time?
8:30.
Oh, yeah, it's quite 8:15.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. All right. So yeah.
Maybe we'll skip the Mandela.
No, I think we should do the Mandela. Let's see. So this is another story. Now we'll try to wrap it up quickly. Yudhishthira and Duryodhan. So this is a story about how, Duryodhan, of course, is a person filled with arrogance, all those qualities that we don't want, right? And Yudhishthira is very saintly. And so, one time his teacher told them that, to Duryodhan, he said, go find someone who is better than you. And so Duryodhan goes around the whole town and comes back and says, I'm sorry, but I traveled the whole town. I couldn't find anyone that is better than me. And then Yudhishthira was also sent, and his project was to go find someone who is worse than him. And he looks around, and he comes back and he says, I'm really sorry, but I couldn't find anyone worse than me. So this is the difference between a devotee and a person who is not. And so this is actually a very nice section on Nelson Mandela, and he talks about humility here.
How does a man spend 27 years in prison, put there by an oppressor, and come out of that experience with not a heart of stone, not a cold heart, but a heart that is willing to forgive and embrace? How is there no bitterness?
Well, I hated oppression. And when I think about the past, the type of things they did, I feel angry. You have a limited time to stay on earth. You must try and use that period for the purpose of transforming your country into what you desire it to be. And therefore, you had to reject all negative features in your own soul, in your blood system, and focus your attention on the positive things. I wanted to be known as Mandela, a man with weaknesses, especially because I knew it was not the contribution of an individual which would bring about liberation and the peaceful transformation of the country. And my first task when I came out was to destroy that myth that I was something other than an ordinary human being.
I had said that you're one of the most humble person I'd ever met. I will tell you that when Mr. Mandela arrived today, he said to the producer, met with him in the room, and he said, what is the subject of today's show? And she said, Nelson Mandela, you are the subject of today's show. He goes, oh, all right. You are not modest, but a very humble man. I wanted to ask, because I think that is the characteristic that stands out for you above all of them, that you are a peacemaker inside yourself. And how do we begin? Those of us who aren't leading countries, but are just leading our own lives, leading our families, come to a sense to be
with yourself. You can never have an impact on society if you have not changed yourself. And one of the most important weapons in changing yourself is to recognize that people everywhere in the world want peace. But humility is one of the most important qualities which you must have. Because if you are humble, if you make people realize that you are no threat to them, then people will embrace you.
So this is actually an amazing, amazing poem, prayer, bhajan, whatever that we found that we wanted to share with you, because one of our greatest challenges is when we find ourselves in, people, shooting arrows at us, right? And then we tend to get angry, we can't forgive, we react, it brings out the worst in us, right? So this is actually a poem where this devotee is singing, and he's saying that, "O saintly soul."
A critic is our dear friend. This is actually sung in a dialect of Hindi. This is just a translation. Keep the critic close to you always. Never let him go far away. Criticizing us behind our backs, he washes our sins. By hearing such criticism, our mind is cleansed of that fault.
Just like a goldsmith purifies gold by putting it in a blazing fire, a jeweler applies harsh friction to a diamond to polish it, by which its value increases tremendously. In a similar way, the harsh words of a critic inadvertently help to glorify a saint throughout the world. The entire world engages in yoga, sacrifices, the chanting of mantras, etc., in order to destroy their sins. So we do so much effort to destroy our sins, but simply by the criticism, one can actually get purified.
How dear is my critic to me, for he destroys my hardened sins without me doing anything. May my critic be peaceful and happy in this world. May my critic's body never be afflicted by any diseases. May the person criticizing me cross over the ocean of material existence.
The glories of the holy feet of the critic should be narrated again and again repeatedly. Charan Das says, "Listen, O sadhu, the critic is extremely important for the saintly souls." So, if we can somehow develop an appreciation for this. And there are, if you see the life of, Jesus Christ, or actually we were about to tell the story of Haridas Thakur, who was beaten in 22 marketplaces, and how he responds to that with so much of compassion, then we can appreciate that that is actually how one can become very dear to Krishna, by developing these qualities of tolerance and patience and humility and all of these wonderful qualities. That is what, because what do you offer to someone who has everything? How can we impress him with our beauty, with our intelligence, with our charisma, with our knowledge, or with our austerity? Those things are not impressive to Krishna. But what does impress Krishna are these qualities that he can then relish.
And the humility doesn't mean that we just think less of ourselves, but we are actually, the person is immersed in thinking about the glories of Krishna, that one finds oneself insignificant in comparison to Krishna. So it's not thinking that I am low and getting into this mood of self-pity, but it is actually being always in awe of Krishna's great qualities, and just like a fruit fly or a firefly thinks of self as insignificant in comparison to the sun. So similarly, we find ourselves insignificant in comparison to Krishna, and that's what the real platform of humility is.
The same, right? That humility does not mean thinking low of oneself; it means thinking less of oneself, right? So we'll stop here, and then we'll see if you guys have any questions or reflections or comments. Dominic, yeah.
Oh, was someone else going to say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I had actually a question about line 17 in chapter 16. It starts with one who neither rejoices nor grieves, laments nor desires, and I was just wondering, like, what the meaning of that was in context of what we've been looking at.
16 or 12?
16?
Chapter 16, verse 17.
Okay.
Well, that's different, right? You mean chapter 12, text 17.
One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things. Such a devotee is very dear to me. So what's your question?
I was wondering what the meaning of that was in the context of the chapter, just because I guess like looking at it, to me, it kind of sounds like there's like a level of no emotion, or like there's, I don't know if you understand, but yeah.
So we'll read Prabhupada's purport here, which kind of explains that. He says, a pure devotee is neither happy nor distressed over material gain and loss, nor is he very much anxious to get a son or disciple, nor is he distressed by not getting them. So he's not anxious to get anything material or material advantage, and he's not distressed when he doesn't get them or loses it. If he loses anything which is very dear to him, he does not lament. Similarly, if he does not get what he desires, he is not distressed. He is transcendental in the face of all kinds of auspicious, inauspicious, and sinful activities. He is prepared to accept all kinds of risks for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Nothing is an impediment in the discharge of his devotional service. Such a devotee is very dear to Krishna.
So the point being that, when it doesn't mean that the devotee does not have any emotions, he does not have any material emotion. So the loss or gain of material things do not disturb him. Just like the ocean, another example that is used is that of an ocean. So sometimes, when it's the rivers flow into the ocean, or if there's a lot of rain, the ocean does not overflow, right? It's just, and then if there is a drought or for some reason there's less water flowing in, the ocean does not get dried. So the ocean is not disturbed by anything that is happening on the outside. So that's what it means. But on the inside, the devotee is experiencing very rich emotions, rich feelings. So it's not like he's stoic or he is like a stone, but he's experiencing spiritual emotions.
Thank you.
Okay. I think Tapas Prabhu had a comment. Made me feel miserable. I realize I haven't even touched the lowest rung of the spiritual ladder.
Yeah, I guess it makes us feel like that there is a long way to go, but by Krishna's grace and by the grace of the great devotees, everything is possible, as we see in the examples of so many devotees. And this feeling that I don't have any qualities is actually a sign of humility, that we feel that we don't have any good qualities, and that's a good place to be in, that I don't have any good qualities. But in that feeling of like I don't have anything, we can call out to Krishna and beg him with more feeling that, Krishna, I don't have any good qualities. If you are pleased with me, then maybe you can give me a speck of good qualities. And we can call out to the Guru.
Vaisheshika Prabhu used a very nice example that I really liked. He says that this actually happens a lot in India also. He was using it in the context of like sometimes you're like really hungry, and you go and they're serving prasadam, and so you just go and you make this face like you're really hungry and you really want some more. Then the person, he'll say, okay, here, you can have some more. Right? So when, or even like in India, sometimes like you see someone and they're like really begging, right? So if a person is already full, then, it's like, okay, you don't really care, right? But if someone really comes to you with that mood that I'm empty, I have nothing, then we can actually receive it, So it's better for us to feel that we don't have any good qualities. In fact, what to speak of us, even the greatest devotees, Sanatan Goswami, when he approaches Lord Chaitanya, he says, everybody thinks I'm this great scholar, but actually I'm such a fool. I don't even know who I am,
Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he feels that he's like a worm in the stool. So this is a good place to be, to call out. We can feel from that feeling of feeling miserable, then we can actually call out to Krishna. Krishna, please help me.
Exactly. So, anybody else?
Mataji, that reflection on Nelson Mandela,
Yeah.
when he was asked how did he not feel bitter after being oppressed so much, I have a reflection on this. Someone told me like, the more you suffer, the more sensitive you are towards others suffering. So suffering is not such a bad thing, actually.
Yeah, And it all depends on how we take that suffering, you know. So those that are have a spiritual consciousness, they become more compassionate. And so it's true, you know, that you know, it can allow us to develop more empathy and more compassion for others. Yeah. Anybody else? All right, so we don't have any further questions.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Shridhar, of course.
I have a question. So I was hearing a lecture by Mahatma Prabhu, and he said that we should not work on, we should not worry about advancing in our spirituality so much, but rather we should work on just serving Srila Prabhupada, and everything will manifest. So how does that statement fit in with working on cultivating good qualities?
Very nice question. So the two are both there, just like Prabhupada said that take these 26 qualities and put them on the door, right? So there is that aspect, but at the same time in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is also described that once you develop a firm attachment to Krishna, then these qualities will automatically manifest. So both are there. So you're right that if we simply just take on this task of trying to please the great devotees and dedicate our life, then just by the fire of that and the mercy that comes from that, one will get purified, and these qualities will automatically manifest. At the same time, in order for us to be able to do those services in a way that is actually pleasing to Prabhupada, one should also try to bring into that. So our service, so we have to redefine service. Service is not just the execution of some work. Service means service with devotion, right? Just like I think there's some, whatever, want to service with a smile, right? So service with devotion, and devotion means qualities. So when we try, Krishna lies in the details. So when we are consciously trying to bring these qualities into our service, then that is even more pleasing to Prabhupada. Then our dedication becomes very, very attractive.
Because Prabhupada said that how, like one of the things that your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate amongst yourselves. So when we are serving Prabhupada and serving his movement, then we'll face obstacles. We'll face obstacles from inside, we'll face obstacles from other devotees. And there's so many things that we have to now see, okay, if I want to really please Prabhupada, or I really want to please myself. And then we'll be forced to look at these qualities, because without trying to work on these qualities, we won't be able to serve for too long. And our service will get interrupted. So then it will, we have to start looking at these qualities sooner or later.
Yeah, and just like Vaisheshika Prabhu says, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. So, you know, even Krishna says that in the Bhagavad-Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, he says if one can offer a fruit, flower, water, but there is a little thing he adds, with love and devotion. So love and devotion means exactly that. And so one can actually, if one engages in service, one will be confronted with one's false ego. One will be confronted with one's own motivations and one will automatically, there is a natural inbuilt, it's built into the system, and if you are sensitive about it, I think Prabhu also said it's a sensitivity training, right? So we do get, you know, we start learning that if I want to be able to serve, then I have to cultivate these qualities.
And I guess our motivation for developing these qualities is not that I just want to develop good qualities, but I need these qualities to serve Prabhupada and serve the devotees, without which I can't please them. So our motivation is different, rather than just collecting good qualities.
Yeah, and you know, we've seen it, that even like a simple act of going out on the streets, and like, you know, traditionally we've all been engaged in going and meeting new people and telling them about the Bhagavad-Gita. If our mood is one of pride and of arrogance, then we cannot even continue that service. And if our mood is one of what's in it for me and how am I going to get glorified, then, you know, we find that our effectiveness in becoming an instrument. So an instrument needs to be sharp and it needs to be polished. Just like if a surgeon needs to perform a surgery, then the instruments have to be really in good condition, right? So same thing, to become an instrument in the hands of Krishna, one has to continuously polish oneself and keep oneself fit so that one can be an effective instrument. So one should pray that Krishna make me, use me as an instrument and remove anything that gets in the way of my being an effective instrument. And a huge part of that is our doership mentality, that somehow by my own intelligence, by my own strength, I can do something. And then the second is the pride that comes with it. Right? So all those things. So very nice question. Thank you very much. So I guess we'll see you. Thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. So yeah, by the way, we'll need to have one evening. We'll